Today on the Unholy Bible Study Podcast, we are going to be looking at Matthew 21, the first 17 verses of that chapter. And it is the account of what's commonly called Palm Sunday, some traditions Passion Sunday in the church. And for those of you listening, if you'd like to take a moment and read that passage ahead before you listen, get a sense of the context, we encourage you to do that.
Yeah, during this conversation, we talk about the Palm Sunday story, both how it begins, which a lot of people know about, but we're also talking about how it ends. We are talking about the event that probably led directly or indirectly to the death of Jesus. We're talking about the exploitative economy that grew up around the temple in first century Jerusalem, and whether that's kind of an inevitable end for a religious institution of any kind, and trying to figure out what it is that Jesus is so angry about in this story. My name's Evan.
My name's Scott.
We're both Baptist pastors, and this is our podcast about the Bible. But you don't have to worry, because we're not trying to save your souls. We won't be telling you what to believe or how to behave, and we promise never to invite you to church. We just like to talk about the Bible, what it actually says, where it probably came from, and how it's been understood or not by different people in different times and places. This is your warning, though, especially if you are or have been a person of faith. For our purposes, the Bible's not a sacred text. We'll be treating the Bible more or less like any other book. During this podcast, there's nothing you have to believe. There is no belief you can't question, and there is no question you can't ask. Welcome to the unHoly Bible Study Podcast. Well, welcome back, everyone, to the unHoly Bible Study Podcast. We've been talking a little bit. We always joke at the end of each episode, like we sign off, we say, we're going to keep talking about this, but you don't have to keep listening. And that's often true. Like, even if we don't continue the conversation immediately there in the moment, we often find ourselves texting about something else that's occurred to us, or thinking through things, or talking about it later in the day, or later in the week. So we wanted to start, we're going to try a new segment, hopefully a very short segment, but just one chance to follow up on our last conversation, and say kind of a final word about the last chapter we talked about. So if you've listened to the show before, you know that each week we are talking about a different chapter of the Bible, and then we move on, and it'll be at least a while before we talk about it again. So we wanted to take just a minute for any final thoughts that the two of us have after having talked about these chapters, and then had a little bit more time to sit with it. Scott, did you have any further thoughts or a final thought about Cain and Abel?
Yeah, it's nothing I didn't say in the episode, but I think it just speaks to this deep, deep human question about violence.
Uh-huh.
And that there's nowhere we can escape it. It shows up even in our most intimate relationships. And I think it's wrestling with that question.
Yeah.
And then in this weird way that you don't expect, then God protects the murderer.
Right.
That's what stood out to me, is it's wrestling with the question and then God's odd response to this violence.
Yeah. My final, the thing that's lingered with me from that episode and that conversation is probably my confusion that this story isn't more central in 21st century Christian faith, or even in Jewish faith. Like, this is a story that a lot of people know and it gets told, but I don't think it has the central importance that I think it really should. Like in a lot of ways, you read that story, and even in the Bible itself, the way the story is told in the chapter, this is the first time a generation is relating to God. This is explicitly the beginning of human culture and art, and religion and cities and all these other things. And it all can be traced directly back to this act of like primordial violence that happens in the presence of God, and God is kind of implicated in it, or at least involved in it. And yet it's not, it feels like there should be, I think in a lot of ways our religions are based on it. And yet it's not the story we use to interpret them.
And it's a story that's not resolved.
That's a good way to think about it. Yeah.
It doesn't, this would not be a good ending to a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I think there's something fascinating about that, like, I think it is more important than we realize, and more formative for Christian faith and probably for lots of religious experiences than we think. But we don't acknowledge it or use it as like the interpretive key or the foundation. It really is. Like, this is where it all starts.
This is my last thought about it. I don't remember where I read this.
I thought the other one was your last thought.
No, but
this one is.
I remember somewhere running across this idea that the Cain and Abel story is a further unfolding of this idea of original sin. That it's like helping us understand what's really wrong, that it's not some minor thing, that's not the original sin. It wasn't just eating this apple or whatever.
That's what drives me nuts, or what
it's so
will
connected.
Not let me go is if you talk about the original sin, people think of the story we tell is the apple or the fruit in the garden, not the murder that happens on the next page. Mm-hmm. But the fruit is nothing. Like, it's a distraction. It's not, this is not the consequence of, this is not the inevitable consequence of being human. Anyway, okay. Maybe in the future we'll have Nick set a timer, mm-hmm. and then we literally have to stop talking mm-hmm. as soon as it starts. Would that work?
But I think we did pretty good.
Oh, yeah. So what was that? Like 15, 20 minutes?
I mean,
no. Yeah, that was great. That's the shortest conversation the two of us have ever had, mm-hmm. and we caught it on film. Today, we are not talking about Cain and Abel. Our conversation today is about the 21st chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. So we're jumping back to the New Testament, but we are continuing this series on, the series has kind of evolved as we went, because I think we needed to focus down a little bit, but we've been talking about sacrifice and violence that's either asked for or directed toward God. And we've heard several different stories and talked about several different chapters in the Bible. We're closing in on the end of this series. We think we probably have one more episode in the mini-series. But today we're talking about Matthew 21. And let's read a little bit of it and see what we find. Do you want to read the first paragraph?
Just before I read, just an important note. This passage shows up in two other versions in Mark and Luke. I mean,
right.
So keep that in mind, that this isn't the only account of this event.
The story we're about to hear shows up in all four of our Gospels, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So 4 accounts of Jesus' life. They all tell these stories in their own ways, and 3 of them, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, tell it in very similar ways.
Right.
Yeah. When is this happening in Jesus' life?
This event happens on the day we call Palm Sunday in the Christian tradition.
So do we know? We know when in the year. This is like in the story, like it's spring. They're approaching the Passover mm-hmm. season, right?
Right.
And this is near the end of what we know about Jesus' life.
The beginning of the Passion, the beginning of Holy Week, really.
Right. Yeah.
And in some traditions they focus on it. They call it Palm Sunday, but others call it Passion Sunday.
What's the difference?
I think, well, the way I grew up, it was always Palm Sunday. And,
Because Palm Sunday's fun.
Right. And as a little kid, you get your palm branches and you walk into this sanctuary singing Hosanna.
I suspect that what you're describing is very confusing to at least some people. Do you think, is that like a universal experience? Or is Palm Sunday as weird as it kind of sounds to me right now as you describe it?
For most Christian traditions, they are aware of that and the use of the palms. I mean, in the whole...
Yeah. So if you've even been adjacent to a church, like you've seen like the palm branches and sure. Yeah.
But as a kid, I just thought that's it. That's the day. They have this great parade for Jesus. Yay! And as a little kid, I got to reenact it,
Right.
But it's the next part of this same day is Jesus going in and turning over the tables at the temple. And that part was never included in our Palm Sunday celebrations.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that's probably true for me too.
And when I first encountered that, I'm like, whoa. The necessary conclusion of going into Jerusalem, what Jesus did,
is a riot.
Right. I mean, he went there he was going there for that purpose.
Yeah.
But
I love that he doesn't tell anybody.
Right.
Or presumably.
And at least as I grew up, that was completely ignored. I didn't discover that.
It was like a separate story. Like it's a story. Well, we should read it.
Let's
read it and we'll keep talking about all of this as we go. But that'll give people some idea of the story that we're talking about. Do you want to read the first one or should I?
So this is the very beginning of the chapter 21. When they'd come near Jerusalem and had reached Bethphage at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. And if anyone says anything to you, just say this: the Lord needs them."
Which is theft.
Right.
That's so weird.
This is a legitimate reason for stealing your donkey here.
It's a very strange thing to tell people to do and then to just go and do.
Yeah, I mean, I could just think of somebody coming in and taking my truck. The Lord needs it. I'm like, no, I'm calling 911.
And it does say it's going to work. He will send them. Like, this will be enough. Yeah. So it's like, it's a magic thing Jesus did. Yeah.
And so, and you can expect the person to cooperate, right? And he will send them immediately. And this took place to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet. And the prophet referenced here is Zechariah, quotes from chapter 9 of Zechariah. The prophet said this: "Tell the daughter of Zion, look, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey and on a colt, the foal of a donkey."
So this is... Do you want to stop there?
Sure.
Or do you want to keep going?
No, that's fine.
Is there enough to talk about here?
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Okay. Because I have like a very... Matthew is the only gospel writer who has 2 donkeys, right? This is the only one where it's the donkey and the colt. And quotes here from Zechariah. Is that what it looks like? Did you find any scholarship on this? Is the idea Jesus can't be riding both?
No,
can
he?
He's got one foot on each.
I mean, I noticed it, but
I've seen that at the state fair. Like, it's possible.
Really?
Well, not on donkeys.
To ride 2.
Yeah. Well, I've seen a guy with a cowboy hat do it.
Speaking of donkeys,
got one foot on
I
each
remember
one.
going to, I forget what it was called, but it was big when I was a kid, people playing basketball on donkeys.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that just West Virginia? Or do you think it happens anywhere else? That sounds interesting.
It was big entertainment.
I can picture like polo on a donkey.
So these were little donkeys on a basketball court.
So you can actually ride a donkey?
Well, they didn't do very well.
No. Like, donkeys are very small, right? So I wasn't even sure it was possible to ride one. So I guess now I know it is. Donkeys are also really cute. Like, they've got nice, like, friendly little faces. Yeah, I love a donkey.
But he's riding the small one, the...
Is he? It says he's riding both. They brought the donkey and the... No, it says he sat on them. He is riding both. I don't know how he's doing it. I don't know if it's like side saddle. I don't know if he's got them close together. I don't know if he's got one foot on each.
I didn't read that line yet, so we better include it here.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So
He gave him breaks.
Maybe, yeah. Which you need to.
Or maybe it's because they're so small, you need to straddle too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Or maybe, like, I don't know, Jesus, big guy, little guy.
You know, it would be interesting. I mean, if this happened, was it done for the comedic effect? Like an exaggerated prophetic act. You know, they did weird things. Isaiah prophesied in the nude for a whole year.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at some point, your symbol becomes a little overwhelming, and you've just got people on the side of the road going, "Is he riding 2 donkeys?" Yeah.
And this is our king?
Yeah, this one?
Yeah. No, he's a madman.
So I think this feels like an example to me of a silly one, and I'm not sure there's anything there, but I do think it's weird. And you were saying, like, Matthew loves a proof text. So one of the unique things about this book of the Bible, it's written, we think it was written by, traditionally it said, we have no idea who wrote it, but traditionally it said it was written by someone named Matthew, who was an associate of Jesus. But what we do know is that this book loves to quote from the Old Testament.
I'll say more about proof text. I mean, we know what that means, but...
Well, that was going to be my question.
Okay.
Like, you used that phrase, Matthew loves a proof text. But what does that mean?
I said he's like the master of proof. He's like addicted to proof text.
And I feel like if you grew up in a church or have spent a lot of time in like a religious congregation, you know what this means. Even if you don't know the name, proof texting is when you rip a line from the Bible out of context and then use it to justify whatever point you wanted to make.
And Matthew does it all the time. This is to fulfill this verse. This is to fill what this verse said.
Yeah.
So yeah, the way that was used for us was these proof texts prove that Jesus really is who he says he is. And that, I don't know. I mean, you're reading back into.
Yeah. Like the argument is if Jesus wasn't who he said he was, then how do you explain this thing that was written hundreds of years before Jesus and then supposedly came true? But the only way we know that it supposedly came true is because somebody quoted the Old Testament and then said, and Jesus did this too. Just take my word
Just
for it.
like the Bible said he would.
Yeah. And I think this feels like an oddly literal thing where Matthew is saying something like grammatically. I think Matthew's saying something a little bit absurd and ambiguous precisely to use this proof text. Like, Zechariah said he was going to ride both, said on a colt and on the foal of a colt, or on a donkey and on a colt of the donkey. And Matthew's like, yeah, you rode them, both of them. Yeah, we're just going to elide that and move on past it. But what about the idea of a king? Like, so this is before we keep reading, like, you kind of have to understand Jesus is riding on this donkey, supposedly in fulfillment of a prophecy, which is like, it is kind of a messianic or a Davidic prophecy in the context, right?
Yeah, the messianic king
yeah.
will be humble. That's sort of the gist of it.
Yeah. So like hundreds of years before, a prophet had written about someday a new king is going to come, right? Is that what Zechariah is writing about, or is Matthew misremembering?
No. It's about the future redemption of Israel and the kind of king that will lead them, and it's this radically humble kind of a king, not a political force.
Yeah.
You know, it's something fundamentally different.
Yeah.
It's important for me to say this. I think the way I grew up, this passage was used in what I would say an anti-Jewish way.
Oh, I'm not sure I had that experience. What did you hear?
So it was, the gist of it is Israel was always totally misguided about who the Messiah was going to be.
Like they didn't
They were so
Yeah.
dense that they couldn't get
Yeah,
it.
they couldn't understand it, even though the prophets said it very clearly.
Right.
They still
and
had the
and
wrong
then
idea.
it becomes, because Israel didn't get it, God casts them aside and starts all over with the church.
Right.
I mean, that's the implication. I just want to say that's a horribly bad reading as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
There's nowhere in the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, that truly communicates this idea that God gives up on Israel.
Sure. Yeah. And Matthew, especially, at least Matthew's reputation, right, is that this writer is especially embedded in, integrated within, like this writer seems to still think of himself as fully Jewish, a part of Israel, a follower of Jesus, and part of something new within that older religion or that older movement or culture, but certainly not separate from it. Yeah.
So I thought of a modern parallel to this, and I just had another one that popped into my mind. But compare this to a presidential motorcade, coming into any town, coming into Washington, all the flashing lights, the motorcycles, all the
Oh yeah, that's a good example.
a big deal, right?
Sure.
Coming into town, all this.
I saw Bob Dole once.
You did?
That's as close as I ever got to a president. He was not a president. He was
No.
just running.
Right.
Yeah. But I lived in Bob Dole's hometown. So his motorcade came when he was campaigning.
Oh, wow.
So his motorcade came through. My fourth grade class went and saw it. Yeah.
Versus, yeah. What?
I have to say that's
You and Bob, you all go way back, huh?
that's not a good story.
So tell me, what was he like?
I don't know. I just saw him. He waved. He seemed friendly. Right now, Jesus isn't in town yet. The motorcade's still outside of Jerusalem.
But he doesn't come in on a motorcade. That's the bizarre thing. A king.
No, he's on two donkeys.
What political leader abandons all the pomp and circumstance? Completely sets
Most
it.
of it.
Yeah.
Like the trappings stuff. Yeah.
So
But keeps the ritual. Okay, so we should read.
What struck me though is, wow, the counter would be like the civil rights movement as they all assembled across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, Bloody Sunday.
Sure. It's like a march. Like
Right.
what's
With a
right
purpose.
now, Jesus is staging a march, a protest,
And that's important.
an
but
act of civil
That's why I think
disobedience.
it's important to remind people that him coming into town concludes with something that happens at the temple. It's not just a nice parade,
It's not
end of story.
the march itself. It's where it ends.
It's the
That's
humble
more important.
leader with the poor, dispossessed, the marginalized, going to the Capitol for a reason,
Sure.
to
Let's read
demand
it.
something.
You read he sat on the colts. That was the last thing we read. And then in verse 8, we pick it up. It says, a very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees. We were talking about palm branches earlier, and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and that followed were shouting, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest heavens. And this is what we were talking about. Yeah, that's a good place to stop. Sorry. This is what we were talking about earlier when we talked about Palm Sunday. This is a scene which most Christian churches, or many Christian churches, especially mainline or more traditional churches, reenact every year. So when Holy Week rolls around, which is the week leading up to Easter, churches often in their regular weekly worship services, as people come in, they will literally give everybody a palm branch or a long leaf from a palm leaf. And often there's like an extra song in the service or a procession into the sanctuary. It might be everybody in the sanctuary or everybody in the church walks in together, or often it's just the children in the church gather outside outside the sanctuary and then come marching down the middle aisle or into the sanctuary, whatever it is. And everybody's waving their palms and usually singing a song, but maybe shouting the word Hosanna, which
And
is
then
a line
after
from this
the
passage.
service, those palms at some point are burned, and those ashes become the ashes for Ash Wednesday the next year.
Traditionally, traditionally the palms are then dried and used for the next year's.
And it doesn't complete the story.
It doesn't.
No, I mean in the way we celebrate
The
it.
way we sell often, that's all.
I mean,
Palm Sunday
Jesus
is.
doesn't
Like,
come into the
there's
sanctuary a
this
little bit later
procession
and
at the
tear
beginning of the
everything
service.
up.
It's very fun. Sometimes there is an actual donkey. Did you ever go to a church with an actual donkey?
We never had actual donkeys.
I've been to one church that had an actual donkey. I got there a little bit late because I thought the donkey was going to come inside, but they didn't want the donkey to get the carpet in the sanctuary dirty. So they just had the donkey in a pen outside the church. And then everybody went in and had the service just like normal.
So it just was sitting there or standing
But
there.
some churches, they bring that donkey all the way in.
Right.
Yeah. They've got to have a wide aisle, and it helps not to have carpet.
Well, Jesus didn't ride the donkey into the temple.
Does it say how he disposed of the donkey? Did he send it back? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I don't think that's answered.
Do you think Jesus would not have ridden the donkey into the temple? Do you think that would have been a bridge too far for Jesus?
Well, we're told what he does do when he gets to the temple, and it's clear he's not doing his activities.
I've seen someone play basketball on a
well,
donkey.
True.
Maybe
Maybe
he
you
did it
can
all.
heal people on a donkey.
What I mean, it doesn't. I don't
It's
think
in
it
the-
tells us
it's
when
in
he
the-
dismounts. So as far as we know, Jesus
in the
rides this donkey.
In the tradition of some of the greatest healers, right?
Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it is included here. But unless I see him dismount, I'm just going to assume he's still riding that donkey.
But a key verse in this part for me is actually verse 10,
Okay.
because we
Is
have
that Hosanna? Oh, I haven't read that yet.
Yeah.
Here, read it.
So when he enters Jerusalem, the whole city was in turmoil, asking, "Who is this?" The crowds were saying, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee."
Right.
The crowd following Jesus, they're with him still. It's the city, the folks in the city that are disturbed by his arrival. The whole city was in turmoil
Yeah, so at
in
least
response
one
to
way,
what's happening.
One way to read this is that Jesus has been kind of journeying toward Jerusalem for months or years or weeks or whatever, and he's been kind of gathering people around him, followers. He's got like his core group of 12 friends, and we know that some other people traveled with him as well. But there is this, probably the best reading is that that's the crowd. Like it's the people who came with Jesus from outside the city. So like rural people, small town people, poor people, and now they're all marching into the big city from the countryside, and they're waving their palm branches and making a big stir. So you don't have any that feels important to you in the story?
It does, because what does the city represent? Well, the city is the institution, right? It's the capital, and it's where the temple is, where
I've
God
heard
dwells.
cities are full of sinners. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you need to sin, the city is the best place to do it. Do you think, is that the...
Right. There's a
that like the
contrast between
tradition
the
here?
crowd following Jesus, who are the outcasts, really, right?
Yeah.
The marginalized.
Yeah, maybe. I think so.
And then the reaction of those in the city when he comes with this crowd.
Yeah.
So there's something about those people and Jesus that's disturbing to the status quo in the city.
Matthew definitely says like the city was disturbed. He doesn't say like, and everybody thought this looked like fun, so they went out and
Let's go get
grabbed their own
donkeys.
palm branches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a clash.
Uh-huh.
And to me, I think it's a clash between the masses
Uh-huh.
and the institution, the government. That's the way I read it.
That's interesting. So you don't think of it as a divide between, but there's more people in the city, right? Like,
Yeah, but I think when you say Jerusalem,
and aren't cities full of like poor and marginalized people. I think I know what you mean, though. Mm-hmm. Like when Matthew says the city's in turmoil, what he really means is the powerful people in the city are upset.
Like something's going on in our city that we don't like.
Like the cops are talking to each other, and the police chief, and the temple.
We gotta shut
the
this
mayor's
down.
office or whatever it is. Anything else in there? We've got crowds shouting. Hosanna is a Hebrew word. Is this also from Zechariah?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure
That's what it
is.
He quotes from multiple sources here, and I'm getting thrown off.
And
Hosanna
Matthew
means
even squeezes-
save us, right? Like, so they're marching into the city and asking for a savior. Are they asking God to save them? Like, is Jesus leading a religious parade, asking for salvation from God? Or are the crowds asking for Jesus to save them? What do you think?
Well, this is why I connected it to the civil rights movement and the Edmund Pettus Bridge and the people marching across that bridge. And that day is called Bloody Sunday because what happens when they get to the other side of the bridge?
They meet the police.
The officials who shut it down. And what are the people? Here's Martin Luther King leading the way. What do the people hope for? They hope for equality. They hope for justice. That's what that march was about. But they're met with resistance on the other side of the bridge when they complete their journey, so to speak. To me, it feels like that. This is a political moment.
And I think a lot of people have, I think even modern scholars who are skeptical of a lot that are skeptical of the historical value of a lot of these stories and whether these things actually happened the way we're told. I think a lot of scholars still think that something like Palm Sunday probably happened and was quite likely the reason that Jesus died. That this was, before this, Jesus might have been kind of annoying, probably was not on anyone's radar, but that this maybe both the parade into the city and what happens after that are the reasons that Jesus attracted the attention that eventually killed him. I wanted to say. Sorry.
Well, and then the last thing though is the city's in turmoil, and the people in the city are saying, "Who is this guy?" Right? But the crowd responds, "This is the prophet Jesus."
Oh, the crowd says that. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
So they're identifying Jesus as a prophet. And the history of prophets with the monarchy throughout Israel's history is it's always a clash between the institution and the prophet.
Yeah, that's interesting. What I started to say was this story is sometimes called the triumphal entry. But Christians don't always, I very seldom heard Christians reflect on the kind of the ancient precedent for this kind of parade. It's called the triumphal entry. Like it is, I think explicitly, at least in the story, it's modeled after a Roman triumph, which is probably not just something the Romans did. Like this is a practice. Often in Rome, especially, if a general or a consul had won incredible victories abroad, like that's what they would do. They would send out armies all over the world, and they would conquer people, and they would pillage and plunder, and they would come back with prisoners and slaves and gold, like literal piles of gold and jewelry and all these things. And if the victories were impressive enough, then the Senate could award them a triumph, which was literally a parade into town that started outside of Rome and proceeded all the way through the city streets. People would come out. They would the soldiers would march behind the general in his chariot. Like the prisoners and slaves would be paraded through town. The gold would be piled in carts, and the parade goes all the way from the city gates to the temple where sacrifices are made.
And it's the ancient version of a ticker tape parade.
Yeah. But a ticker tape parade doesn't even end at like the religious implications are there,
yeah.
even in the more secular or the pagan version of this.
Well, and the
this
Caesar
ritual.
is a god, right? So it's very tied up in Caesar worship.
Would have been
Yeah.
eventually like the Roman emperor is identified with divinity. And certainly by the time these stories are being written, that would have been an implication. So most of the first people who heard this story or who saw the original events almost certainly would have had that association or would have noticed the way this resonates with this practice, which is like a celebration of imperial power. So the shape is the same, like Jesus is still parading on a horse through the city streets from the gate to the temple, but it's so much different in the trappings. Like you said, there's humility here. Like it's a cult. It's not a giant white stallion, and it's the poor and the marginalized waving their palm branches. It's not all the powerful people from the city who came out to watch the parade. So there's this really strong
creates
contrast.
A disturbance. That's the thing.
They don't like it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very upsetting for some reason. It's not a happy day for the folks in Jerusalem.
Yeah. Should we read what happens next?
I'll let you do that one.
Then Jesus entered the temple, possibly riding on a donkey, and drove out all who were selling and buying in the temple. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. He said to them, "It is written," this is from Isaiah, "My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers." The blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he cured them. But when the chief priests and the scribes saw the amazing things that he did and heard the children crying out in the temple and saying, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they became angry and said to him, "Do you hear what these are saying?" Jesus said to them, "Yes. Have you never read, out of the mouths of infants and nursing babies, you have prepared praise for yourself?" He left them, went out of the city to Bethany, and spent the night there.
And we have two more proof texts that show up.
Yeah. Yeah. Prophetic affirmations.
Right.
Yeah. But is the line, Isaiah doesn't say the thing about a den of robbers.
No, that seems like that comes from Jeremiah, doesn't it?
Maybe.
It's a conflation of two.
Okay.
I know that for a fact.
Yeah. It sounds like something Jeremiah would say. Yeah. So we have this altercation, this incident. Again, it's some scholars think this is probably this whole parade to the temple, and then what happens when Jesus gets there. If anything got Jesus killed, it was probably this. But tell me, do you understand? I have heard so many explanations, often mutually exclusive, for what's going on in the temple, what's ordinary, and why it makes Jesus so mad. So we have like this kind of violent altercation where Jesus goes into the temple courts, which is like a religious space, a sacred space, and he causes a massive scene. Like he violently flips over tables. In some versions of the story, he's driving out the vendors with a whip. But I'm not sure I totally understand what is going on before Jesus gets there.
Well, so let's start with the money changers.
Yeah.
Why were there money changers there?
Yeah, that's my question. And I don't like any of the explanations I've seen.
Well, you can't.
Or I don't like, they all just seem to be begging
okay,
the question.
so if you
only a certain kind of money could be used in the temple?
Right, only temple currency, because you couldn't use Roman currency, which is what everybody.
Why not?
Because it had the image of the Caesar on it. It was idolatrous.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh, are you really? You didn't?
I'd never heard that.
Oh,
No.
Yeah. So you can't use Roman currency for any temple related stuff.
Who explains this? Does Josephus know this stuff?
That I don't know, but
Okay.
but if you look at any pictures of temple currency,
Sure.
they don't have image. I mean, they'll have a wheat on it or grapes on it, but no human faces are on any of the
Okay.
temple currency.
No, I've never seen. So there is actually they have the coins that were used in the temple. So you took your money to the temple, like at the airport. You gave them your Roman money or your whatever money, and they gave you like
Temple.
script for the temple.
Right.
Okay, it's like a company.
But the way it
store.
worked was if you were
And they got a good rate, I assume.
yeah,
The
they
temple got a good rate.
The
Yeah.
discount rate, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but if you live far away,
That is a racket.
you live far away and you're coming to the temple to make a sacrifice, it would be hard to bring your sacrifice with you. So you probably sell your animal that you're going to sacrifice, take that money, and it's done in Roman currency.
Right.
Come to the temple, you have to buy an animal with the money that you got for selling yours, but you have to exchange your money, and there's a premium for that, right? You have to pay a service fee for the exchange. But
Sure.
then the animals they sell, they have a premium too because their animals are better than your animals.
Well, and I mean, you're always going to pay more at the stadium than if you brought your own with you.
Right.
So
Like trying to sneak in your own peanuts, right?
so this is all for, and this is why we, I think this is kind of the heart of the issue. Is temple currency the only thing you use it for is buying animals to sacrifice?
Well,
Or is
they
it
can
also
only be
alms?
spent at the temple, and I don't know what other services you could purchase.
Well, they've got those big drums where they throw the, where you can give money, right? Mm-hmm. The temple will always take your money.
Right,
You don't
but
have
it
to be
has to
buying
be. It
something.
can't be Gentile currency. It has to be
Apparently not.
temple
Yeah.
currency.
It is, so they exchange your money so that,
And you have to pay a fee for that.
yep, so that they can then take your money.
And then you have to buy an animal, but they're super
And we assume
obsessed about the animal being perfect. I mean, it can't have one hair that's the wrong color. So you're guaranteed. Well, you buy our animal, and we guarantee God will accept that one.
yeah. So these are those who are selling doves, right? So this is kind of the temple economy that makes Jesus angry. And it's like, presumably it makes Jesus angry because there's corruption in the system. Like, it really doesn't say,
Well,
we just have to know on the surface, if you genuinely believe that God doesn't want Roman money, like, that's not crazier than a lot of other religious rules I've heard. And you really, like, you believe that God wants nice doves to be sacrificed. Like, there doesn't seem, is there anything inherently wrong with this system if it's not corrupt?
Well, see that most of what I've looked at for this text is the problem Jesus had was not with what happened at the temple as far as the sacrifices and stuff. That it was.
I've heard that too.
That
That Jesus
it's
didn't
a
like people
response to
taking
the-
advantage of the temple.
But more than that, it was limiting access. Who could get in there?
Oh,
And
sure.
It was a way of screening in essence, because the fact that all these nobodies were marching in with Jesus into the temple property,
Yeah.
where they weren't supposed to be. I mean, the way the temple was set up, you had the court of the Gentiles. I can't remember was it the women's court further away?
I can never remember. I've looked at these
Right, but
schematics
you've got all these
so many
courts
times.
where
Every
there's
time I have to preach
levels
about the
of
temple,
restriction, right?
It's concentric. Like,
Right.
you move from the outside slowly, like each layer, less and less people are
Right.
worthy to
So,
go in.
and
Are allowed to go in.
What does Jesus do? Well, first of all, he shuts down the whole the business part of the temple. That just shuts it down violently.
One commentator I liked this. I thought I'd never heard anybody say this. Said, remember how crowded the temple is? Like it's huge, a very busy place. Like one guy turning over tables. Like a lot of people, you could have been there and you might not even have noticed that this was happening.
Right, because it would have happened at one gate, right?
Sure.
There's gates all the way around, so
either Jesus is
there's
there
not
for like an hour and a half.
There aren't two-way radios. Say we got a disturbance at gate 12.
Yeah. So it's it's so strange to picture, like, okay, what would this have actually looked like? How big of a disturbance could Jesus possibly have caused? Did that crowd come in with him? Like at this point, the story kind of narrows down and,
well, you wonder, I mean, it sounds like they knew he was riding into town. And again, when it says the whole city was disturbed.
Right.
I mean, really, the temple is the city, right?
Like,
I mean, the temple.
I think that's Matthew telling a story. Like,
yeah, but I mean, really, what's there? It's the capital. The capital. Think of all of
the
Washington,
center of power.
All
like
of Washington was disturbed by something that happened. That they're not saying the commoners were part of that. They weren't disturbed. Clearly, it's the officials in the city.
So do you think, you said, or some scholars say, Jesus doesn't have any problem with what's actually happening inside the temple. Like if you could get in there, whatever the priests are doing behind those closed doors is probably fine with Jesus. It's the way access is limited. It's maybe corruption in the economy that's built up around it. Like the rates are too high, like the doves are too expensive. The people get these contracts by self-dealing and nepotism or whatever it is. Do you read this at all? Do you think you can read it, that Jesus is attacking the temple system itself? That more than just attacking those kind of marginal elements to it or the ways it's wrong, do you think? Well, maybe we can talk. That's my question. Is this an attack on the whole idea that we need a temple where we kill things to make God happy? Or is Jesus like, yeah, we need a temple to where we kill things to make God happy and everybody should be able to come do it?
Well, the way I would say it is might be that Jesus wasn't addressing the second question even. I mean, if this is the status quo, this is where you go to get things right with God.
Sure.
There are prescribed ways to do that, the sacrificial system. But that system should be available to everyone on an equal basis. I mean, think of during the Reformation, the 1500s,
so like
in the history of the church. Well, the church was selling indulgences, which was, okay, if you had a loved one who died and they weren't Christian, or you're worried about whether they're going to make it to heaven or not, you can pay money and you can graduate them from
a good example
limbo to heaven.
Sure.
And what was all that? Who got all that money? It was
the Pope.
The Pope, right? Rome. It all went to Rome.
Sure. Or whoever. Like I'm sure 1,000 people got a little bit of that money on the way up.
And think of how Martin Luther saw that. He saw it as an abuse that victimized the poor.
Right. Yeah.
It was obscene.
Yeah. But it was also, I think Luther was also really clear that it was also bad theology. That there was, not only was the practice exploitative and the system corrupt, but the theological foundation under it was rotten. That we had not been thinking well about who God is, what God needs or wants from us, how we relate to God. And I'm not sure, like the theological dimension is not explored at all in this story. In Jesus' protest at the temple, if there is a theological dimension to it, Matthew doesn't doesn't describe it, doesn't say a word about it.
But would he have to? I mean, if this,
I would like him to.
yeah, but the implications would have been obvious in those days, right?
I'm not sure.
Like, well, if you know anything about the prophets, I mean, the prophets were constantly railing against.
I think the first level of implications are very clear, and I agree fully with almost everything I've heard about this, or almost everything you've said, which is Jesus is first and foremost attacking this system of exclusion and exploitation. You can't police access to God. I wonder if.
Well, let me add to that. So, how does Matthew has some accounts post on Good Friday in Matthew's accounts? He says when Jesus died, what happens?
Sorry,
the veil of the temple.
Tell me again.
The veil of the temple is ripped. Right down. I mean, the Holy of Holies is exposed.
Wait, that happens in Matthew? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
It definitely happens in Mark. Yeah, I'm sure you're right. It does happen in Mark.
And then dead people rise.
I know. That's my favorite part. Matthew's the only one who tells us that happened.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is a continuing narrative, right? So we have the temple, which has this corrupt business practice.
Oh, that's an interesting
that's
way to think about it.
Sure.
Sure.
And what's the ultimate? And they kill Jesus for coming in and disturbing the peace. But after he dies, the whole temple's opened up to everybody. Anybody can walk in now because it's all ripped to shreds.
But what are they going to do when they get inside? Are they going to kill something to make God happy?
I don't know that that's the point. The point is access is no longer limited or controlled or policed.
Yeah.
It's the democratizing.
I think that is how the story is often understood. Like, I do think that's the takeaway most people have had, and that's been the most central way to understand this for Christians.
It raises like basic questions about what's the purpose of any institution. So hospital, what's the purpose of a hospital?
Sure. I think it also raises like even deeper questions about God and about what God wants or needs from us. And I would say,
but an institution dedicated to medicine and healing, we see it today with healthcare. It's not accessible to the poor.
Like exploitative and
right.
Yeah.
You can't afford
limited access.
You can't afford to go to the hospital.
Yeah, that's a good example too.
And so to me, I read it that way, that Jesus is saying the very purpose of this institution, the very purpose of the temple, a house of prayer.
I do like that Isaiah calls it a house of prayer, not a house of sacrifice, not a house of ritual. This is a place to talk with God,
to communicate, to engage. Yeah.
So I
don't think it's specifically addressing the sacrificial system, but
I don't think it does. In the story as it is, I don't think it does. It kind of completely ignores how Jesus might have felt about the temple in and of itself.
The question that it raises for us, though, or for me, is in what ways have we limited access?
We haven't. We've done a very good job.
Right.
We've done everything right. And God is very happy with us. I have not killed a single dove. It's a good... It's the question, right?
It's a question we should ask constantly. Is our institution, the church? I mean, I'm a retired pastor. You're current. Are we limiting access in any of our behaviors and the way we do things?
Yeah.
Are we excluding?
Which of our tables is Jesus gonna flip over? Yeah.
And the passage that
I've got too many tables in here.
Right.
You just have a field day.
But
luckily,
the passage
built into the walls
that Matthew references, a house of prayer for all. Matthew cuts off.
Yeah, he doesn't say it. Matthew's the worst.
Yeah, he cuts off the end of that quote.
Yeah.
For all nations. The Hebrew word is yom. That's not right. But the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, uses the word Gentile.
Yeah.
So a house of prayer for all Gentiles.
Right.
That's the purpose of the temple.
Yeah, it's a beautiful vision. It's like one of the best visions in the Old Testament of the temple as a place where literally anybody can just come be with God.
And the way it goes on, that if you read the rest of that Isaiah passage, that foreigners are going to be welcomed into this temple.
Yeah, everybody. Isaiah's got
And
a whole
even
list.
the eunuchs, the people, what's a eunuch? They're trans in essence, right? Or their sexuality is questionable.
Certainly, yeah, I think. Yeah.
But in that passage, it says there'll be a house of prayer for
people
all
who
Gentiles.
Don't fit into traditional gender categories.
And those people are
often not by choice.
In that passage, it says those people will have a name better than sons or daughters.
Yeah, Isaiah's great.
The most scandalous people.
Well,
the
Isaiah's
people
great in that chapter.
that make people the most uncomfortable, the people that were most likely to exclude and reject, are going to be first, not
that's what he
last.
says. It's so good. I don't think we said this at the top, but we're not reading this whole chapter because it's super long. I've got more of it on the page, but I think we've covered enough, right?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Jesus kills a fig tree and says some stuff. But we're just, our focus is on what we've already
the
read.
fig tree, it is.
I love the fig tree.
But it's, again, what's the purpose of the fig tree? To produce fruit, right?
Yeah,
But
maybe.
if it's not producing, if it's not doing what it's,
So Matthew tells the story. Well, we can't get into it. Yeah, I think you're right. In Matthew's telling, that is kind of the idea, is Jesus curses this tree because it's not functioning the way it's supposed to. I might quibble with the idea that the only purpose for that fig tree was to provide figs for Jesus when he happened to be hungry. Like, I think maybe the fig tree has some value beyond that, but whatever. Who am I?
I'm thinking, so what's the purpose of anything? What's the purpose of a watch?
Mine tells me how many calories I've burned.
Right. We've watches. But originally, watches were timepieces
Yeah, sure.
to tell you what time. Now, what determines how good of a watch you have? How accurate it is in telling time?
Uh-huh.
But what if your watch has a diamond for each hour of the day on the face of it? And what if it's 24 karat gold? Yeah. Are those essential parts? Is that an essential part to the functionality of a watch? No, it's irrelevant.
Unless the real function of a watch is to make you look cooler than the person standing next to you.
Right.
Which, hey, it was. The sun could tell time.
Right.
Yeah.
But it gets to that question, what's the purpose of the temple?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what Jesus is getting at, is this radical action is, you've got it all backwards.
Right. We got to take a break. All right. Then we'll come back.
Sounds good.
Cool. Take it or leave it.
This is a take it for me.
Why? It's like central.
It's so central to what I think that Jesus, his life, his death, this is what it's all about.
Uh-huh.
And it's the coming to the head of what his mission and purpose is, and what the institution that's supposed to be representing God is not doing.
Yeah. I'm going to leave it. But with a caveat, the only reason I'm going to leave it is because I know that there are other versions of this story that I like
not
better.
Fair.
It's not?
No. No.
Why not?
I disagree.
You don't think that should not be allowed?
If it's the same event, yeah, I guess you could say I'm leaving Matthew's version.
I am leaving the verses we've read from Matthew 21.
Okay.
And I think I can get by without the rest of the chapter too. But I like other versions of this story better. I hate that Matthew cut off that line from the quote. I hate Matthew's business with the cults. Matthew is just not the gospel that resonates best with me. So
Yeah, I would
I'm gonna
say
leave it, but it's a
the
soft
three
leave it.
The Mark one,
I like Mark's version. I like Luke's version.
and it's probably, I mean, it's the original, right? It's clearly the one they built that Matthew.
And I don't mind John's version. John's version is much different.
but it happens in a completely different.
It does. It's not connected to Holy Week.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, a soft leave it. Like there's just, I know I'll be able to pick this one up later, cheaper or something.
We mentioned this. I mentioned this during our break, but one reason that I might leave it is the way this text has been misused. This was the big proof text for my church saying we can't have bake sales or rummage sales.
Yeah, there's so many different readings for what Jesus is angry about. And maybe, I mean, that ambiguity is there.
You can't
in
have
all
youth
the tellings.
fundraisers in the church building. You got to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
like
some churches, you will literally hear that. Like you cannot buy or sell anything or exchange money for anything in the church building. Yeah. Was it, I mean, it's just crazy because they
So when I said
definitely
take
still
it, take
passed
it,
the
take
plate.
it,
Yeah.
it was the episode I was thinking of, not the particular gospel writer.
So this event from Jesus' life, this story about Jesus, is a strong take it. But it sounds like you like Matthew's version. Okay.
Yeah, I like it. The one reason I like it is the one thing he does that the other ones don't is he heals in the temple.
Oh yeah, he does. That's something we didn't. Did we not? Well, we don't have time anyway. But yeah, because that's the next thing that happens, isn't it? After, is that even before the fig tree?
It's right afterwards, I think.
Yeah, I must have messed up when I printed this. Because yeah, Jesus does heal in the temple. That's interesting.
And again, this gets back to the purpose, this whole business of who God is and what God's about. You think of like the healthcare system, is it meant to provide healthcare for the people or not? Or is it meant to generate income for the institution?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that's interesting.
So Jesus is giving
Jesus does
free health
heal.
care to everyone.
Yeah.
And
it's very much the marginalized peoples that are coming in. Yeah.
people who aren't allowed in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're doing a thing that seems like very appropriate for the temple, but not something that normally happened.
Right.
in this
And to me, it gets at like what is wrong when the church is off track? Why is it off track, or how is it off track? And it's always because we lose sight of what we're meant to be. Our job is not to guard the gates and decide who gets to come in and who doesn't.
Sure.
We're not the decision makers about who gets to, do the religious act. We can't tell somebody you can't come and take communion today because, you don't qualify.
Yeah, sure.
And to me, it gets to the very heart of what Jesus was. And then this conflict that always arises between what I think the purpose of the gospel is and the way the church as an institution has functioned throughout history.
Yeah. And I'm, like I said, this episode from Jesus' life is one that means a lot to me. I'm a soft. I'm just worried my Bible's getting a little too heavy.
Yeah.
Don't need anything extra in there. And there's nothing here that I hate. There's,
Yeah,
fine.
it's a densely packed narrative.
It's a very full chapter. It's a very long chapter. Matthew's got a lot of long chapters.
And the parables that follow in this chapter, they continue to expand on these ideas, actually, I think.
So why did you pick this one for this series?
because it raises the question. Well, as far as the whole sacrifice and violence thing goes, I think it exposes, or at least raises the question: are those the things that are really important to God? And like a prophet, and the fact that Jesus is quoting from Isaiah even, or Matthew is, for the prophets were just constantly railing not against the temple and its kind of charter, what its purpose is.
Right.
It was the corruption that constantly crept into it, and how it was such a perversion, almost an obscene kind of perversion against what, from the divine perspective, it's for all peoples, any kind of human being, even the eunuchs and the foreigners. There's nothing exclusive about what God is doing, but yet the institution just excludes, almost can't help itself.
Sure. Do you want to hear my totally speculative reading of this passage, which is not grounded in any? I think it's a reading. Kind of, we talked about this before the break, or I kept hammering away at this. I think there's a question here that even Matthew and some of the other New Testament writers aren't really willing to ask. But I like to believe, or I would like to think, that Jesus is actually the only reason his activity is confined to the temple courts is because that's all he could get to. Like, that's they kicked him out, or like he couldn't go any further. But I read this as, I like to read this. I like this story better if Jesus is attacking the temple institution itself, and not the Jewish temple or the Jewish practice, but the whole idea of a sacrificial religion, that he's disrupting that economy that propped it up. He's railing against it. If he could, he would tear down the entire structure where we kill things to make God happy.
I agree,
or
with
to
that
repair
reading,
our relationship to God. I think there's. We were talking about this earlier too. Like, I think there is so much irony in the fact that Jesus attacks the temple and then is murdered. Like, murdered, executed, becomes like a. They do exactly the thing that he's been railing against, which is shedding blood, like shedding blood to keep God happy, or to maintain this kind of like imperial peace. Like, I do think there's, like, Jesus' mostly nonviolent assault on the temple is met by the most brutal violence you can imagine. And it's like, of course, this whole system exists to perpetuate violence. It's rooted on violence. Like, it started with Cain and Abel, and now we keep killing things, and we think that's what God wants. And Jesus makes this like totally futile attack on it,
and it becomes embedded with injustice.
And then they kill him.
Yeah.
But then I think the irony is that system stays in place. Like, Jesus rails against this system and then just gets folded into it.
But here's another irony. Matthew was likely compiled after AD 70, right?
Yeah.
And then what happened in AD 70? The temple's destroyed.
Yes. So the Christian reading of this story and of the temple system is that the temple system has been replaced or superseded. A Christian reading is that the temple system has been replaced by Jesus. Like, but it's the same logic and it's the same story. It's still God needed blood, but now Jesus gave God the very best blood.
Mm-hmm.
So now everything's fine. Like, we don't have to keep killing things into perpetuity because we've killed the best thing already.
Mm-hmm. But so I think it's so key that the masses identify him as a prophet. And we've got Isaiah quoted from, and what does Isaiah say about the temple? What sacrifice can you bring to me? If you offer a bull, isn't that like murder?
Yeah.
Like there's something about the system, the temple, that prophets never liked.
Yeah. But I don't think Matthew is attacking. I think Jesus might have been attacking the temple itself, like a good prophet. Mm-hmm. I don't think Matthew is attacking the temple system. I think Matthew likes the system, thinks that we've got it right. This is what God needs from us, is for something to bleed. And luckily Jesus was here and Jesus bled, and now things
solved
are
it
okay
for everyone.
Yeah. And I think, I hope, or I think it's quite possible that Jesus would have been deeply offended by that reading of his life. I totally
agree.
Death. Yeah.
And if we think that's what's going on, that particular reading, it doesn't fly if you look at the way the prophets spoke about the temple. They were constantly highlighting, we talked about Amos, away from me, an early episode we did, away from me your songs, the noise, all your stuff you do in the temple. Right. Why? Because you're ignoring the poor and the outcast. The purpose of this institution is to be a sanctuary where anyone, no one is excluded, that they can encounter redemption, healing, wholeness.
Yeah. I mean, I am completely in agreement with the way you describe what a sacred space or a community of faith should be, and how there are often barriers and obstacles that we don't even know we're putting up that make it harder for people to sit in the presence of God or feel some connection to God. But they're also, like, the image of Jesus healing indiscriminately in the temple is a wonderful one, but only Jesus can do that. Like, I think it still leaves me wondering, so I walk away from this story and I'm asking, what good is a church? Like, is there a space for religious institutions? Like, would Jesus flip over the tables? Like, we try, I think most people try in good faith to welcome, most religious people try to welcome all kinds of people into their spaces. Not all of them, but many of them think that's what they're doing. We think that's what we're doing. But I'm not totally sure it's possible. And I think maybe there's something about, like, even creating a sacred space that suggests you've already missed the boat by so much that you can't recover.
Yeah,
and it would offend
Isaiah
Jesus.
addresses that very question. Yeah. What temple can you build for me? Is not heaven my throne and earth my footstool?
Sure,
the whole
but
idea,
people like church.
But the whole idea
some people,
that somehow
a few people,
we can have an encounter here in this building with God that we can't have anywhere else. That's a silly idea, if you ask me.
We can't have, sure, but is it easier?
In some ways, it's not easier, I think. In some ways, it's so...
Yeah, I think you're probably right that it tends to be harder.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're from outside of the Christian tradition and you come to a church, you're not going to understand what it's about.
Yeah. I think this is maybe what I'm probably... like, where I think this story is most interesting is in the suggestion that built into our religious institutions and our ways of thinking about life with God, there are obstacles we just can't get over. Like as soon as we create any structure, it's already like we've already missed the point.
I think that's true. Okay, so
But I really like it.
no,
Like it means a lot to me.
it's not that it's fundamentally a bad thing. It's that
But Jesus might be saying it's fundamentally a
he
bad
might
thing.
be.
That's it. Okay. And I'm sorry I'm going around this so many times. I think it's even hard for me to say it out loud. I like many things about my religious practice and the way and the faith tradition in which I live. And I don't like the idea that Jesus would say it's rotten at the core. Mm-hmm. The theological foundation is bunk because you cannot get away from the sacrificial logic, which automatically excludes people as soon as you put it into practice.
So I just came up with an analogy. Training wheels. You're teaching a kid to ride a bicycle. Uh-huh. And what's the goal? You want the kid to be able to ride the bicycle freely and,
yeah.
But
they use balance bikes now.
Right. But I remember my oldest grandson, he did not want to remove those training wheels.
Yeah, it's tough.
And even when he had it down, he still needed them. And I think that's the way the church functions sometimes.
Did you try bribery?
No, I don't.
Because that's what worked for us.
Really?
Yeah. Once we bribed him, he got right up
so
on
that's
the
what
bike.
the church needs to do, right? Bribe people.
Jesus
we'll
is definitely going to come
God.
flip over my tables.
No, but I think the institution is that way. We feel like we need it so much that we're afraid to let go of it. But it isn't necessary.
I don't know that I feel like I need it. I feel like I like it. Mm-hmm. Like that it means a lot to me and that it is my space of connection to the divine or to the
creatures and embodied acts are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we are. There's nothing wrong with tradition. There's nothing wrong with ritual in and of itself.
Probably, maybe.
Well, at least, I mean,
I think you're right, but I think that's probably my takeaway from this story is this an attack on religious ritual, sacred space, and our religious traditions themselves?
And I think it probably is because of its connection to the prophets and the fact that the crowd identifies Jesus as a prophet.
Is Jesus saying do better, or is Jesus saying stop doing this? I don't like to think about the answer.
I mean, what does Jesus say? Wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them.
Yeah. John says that, right? Yeah.
Right. I mean,
John says that
Jesus says that, yeah. I mean, isn't that it? Like, no, I'm present.
Yeah, I like that.
And my presence isn't confined or regulated or administered by anybody. And doing these rituals doesn't guarantee it or anything. They may be helpful, in rehearsing our tradition, but when they become the focus, then we're way off track.
Yeah. Which do you think it's, and I think you probably already answered this question, we started a segment last week, which was something like, did God actually say this? Or, like where maybe another way to ask the question that we kind of want to wrap up with is why do you think this story got told? What's your reading of it? And specifically, why is Matthew telling the story this way? Is there a fundamental truth from God that you think is communicated here? Or do you sense some kind of like ulterior motive in the telling?
Well, I hear 2 parts to your question. The first part is, why is this story preserved at all in my mind? Like, why was it collected? Jesus did a whole bunch of stuff, and there aren't, we don't have accounts of everything he did. But this is a
Yeah,
particularly
I think
memorable one.
for the purposes of this conversation, and we're figuring this out as we go. I think the interesting question is, why is the story preserved in this particular way?
Mm-hmm.
But one answer to that question is because this is a story Matthew had. Like, I think one of the reasons Matthew tells this story, even though it doesn't always fit neatly into Matthew's theology, is because Matthew, this is what happened. Like, this is the story Matthew was told.
And actually, I think I think Matthew does believe that Jesus' death on a cross was some kind of satisfying sacrifice.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think he believes that.
Matthew is not attacking the theology that undergirds the temple system. He buys into it. It makes sense to him.
And it's interesting, his source has to be Mark, right?
At least one of them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
for this.
At least for the basic
Yeah.
core of the story, Mark doesn't address any of those questions. It happens.
Yep.
Mark doesn't refer back to a proof text to explain anything.
Mark doesn't really interpret a lot. Mark just gives
but
you
that's
the
a
raw
better way
material.
of telling the story, isn't it? Like, this is what
I think
happened.
what
did it mean? I don't know.
Kind of a Hemingway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it sounds like you do think there's in the core of that story, there's a divine truth, something really meaningful?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would you say something from God?
Yeah. Think back to when we did Saul and Israel wanting a king.
Yeah.
And I remember asking the question.
Was that the first episode we recorded?
It was early.
I think it might have been the earliest
We
one that
wanted
made
it to be
air.
our first.
Yeah.
But I remember pondering the question, so if Israel never had a king, would they have ever had a temple?
Right.
Because
I remember that.
Because a king built the temple.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh,
that's interesting. We got to come back. Well, we've got at least two more chances.
There
to
would
talk
not have
about
been a
this
temple
story.
because who would have? The funds had to be raised to build that building, right?
Yeah.
And how was that?
Well, we didn't even talk about like the physical location of this story. Oh my gosh, we've got to come back to this because it's tied up in Herod. It's tied up in the Imperial Project. It's tied up in like public works and like how you keep a populace in a city happy and make them think you're doing something for them. Yeah, that's a fascinating story because this is the temple Herod built.
Right. So I do think it's
took
calling
decades.
into question just the whole enterprise.
Yeah, I think so too. But Matthew might not think that. Any final thoughts?
The question, what does God really need from us to forgive us? To me, that's like a very basic question. Is there something you do that makes God say, okay, now I can forgive you? I couldn't before you did that. But now that you did that,
I could.
Yeah,
I can handle it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think I think we've talked about everything. I guess we can come back to it next week if we need to. Well, thank you, especially to our producer, Nick Mandog Smith, for recording and editing and distributing the show. Thank you to our executive producer, Jay Kennedy, for all his support along the way. And a huge thank you to all of you for joining us today and listening to this conversation. Next week, do you remember what we're talking about?
Hebrews.
Yeah, we're going back to Hebrews 9, which is where this miniseries started, and see if now we know what to make of it. And that'll be the last episode in this miniseries. And I think we know what's coming up next, or at least have some idea.
And just a
of where we're going from here.
foreshadowing, I would be happy to not have the whole book of Hebrews in the Bible.
I think we already know you're a strong leaver on Hebrews. Well, we hope you'll join us for that conversation. And now, as always, we're probably going to keep talking about this, but you don't have to keep listening.